Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over an upcoming winter storm for parts of the mid-Atlantic and into the Tennessee Valley. It's currently ongoing and it's going to be going through tonight and into tomorrow. We're going to be having your snowfall forecast for that event, and we're also going to be talking about those potentially sub-zero temperatures that are going to be moving through the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and then into the interior Northeast as we get through the week and even into early next week. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like, and it's quieted down just a little bit, but we do still have a lot of warnings out west, and we'll go from west to east here. We have some winter storm warnings in effect all throughout the mountainous west, from California northward to Washington and Idaho there. We also have some winter weather advisories in the purple colors scattered throughout the western U.S. We have blizzard warnings in effect for some of the Sierra Nevadas in California as well. And then we have some flood watches and wind advisories for parts of the western United States, mainly for California, Nevada, Oregon, and Idaho there. We also have some wind chill advisories back through northern North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota, as well as from this system that we're going to be talking about, some winter weather advisories in the purples, winter storm warnings in that pink color for western North Carolina, easternmost Tennessee, and a little bit of southwestern Virginia there. We also have a little bit of severe weather moving throughout this region, and even a couple tornado warnings right there for northern Florida. And yes, we are actually undergoing some tornado activity, especially through the southeastern United States. We had one in Alabama, which unfortunately was deadly, and now we're seeing another one, which there haven't been too many reports just yet, but hopefully that one doesn't cause too much damage that's down there in northern Florida. And that system out to the west is actually Winter Storm Orlena, which has already been named, and that's going to be the subject of tomorrow's video because there's been a lot of chatter over what's going to happen as it moves into the Great Lakes in the Northeast, potentially our next storm. It's a little bit too early to discuss any fine details, but tomorrow we're going to give you a general overview of what could happen, the different scenarios, and we're going to kind of talk about that in a little bit of depth. So here's what the current radar looks like, and this is provided by AccuWeather. I really like their radar style, so that's usually what I use when I'm showing the current radar. And you can see where the snow and rain is. The rain, of course, in the green, yellow, and reds, and then as you get into the blues, that's where you're looking at the snow. We see that snow spreading through eastern Missouri, back through southern Illinois and southern Indiana. It's going to make its way into Kentucky and potentially down through into Tennessee there, especially the northern half of the state, and eventually by tonight into tomorrow morning, it should be making its way into Virginia and North Carolina. Now, here's the NAM 3cam model, and this would be by 4 p.m. Eastern time, so in about 3 hours from when I'm recording this video. So this would be 4 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Central time, and we're looking at that snow in the blues, and that's actually quite moderate to heavy snow potentially. The NAM does like to overdo some of the snow totals, so I would probably take about 2/3 of what you're seeing in the final snow amounts, and that'll actually be more accurate to what you actually see. We are seeing potentially some rain out ahead of it because we're dealing with that cold air on that western side, and actually some rather milder air out ahead of it. So those temperatures will be either near normal, maybe a little bit below normal, but definitely not cold enough to snow just yet. But as you get that system to roll through with the cold air that's on that back end side, you will be able to see some of those temperatures in North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky switch over to below 32 degrees, and of course closer to that freezing mark where you can actually see a little bit of snowfall. So the models have actually from yesterday, where they were mainly confining that snow to this area, they've shifted southward, and not really with the location, but where with the snow, where the snow actually sets up. So areas of southern Virginia are still looking at snow, but now areas of much of North Carolina are also dealing with a little bit of potential snowfall, and even northeastern North Carolina has now been added into kind of that bullseye area now, where most of the models are showing closer to 3 inches for you guys. And as we move through today, this would be by right around 7 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Central time. We're looking at more of that snow moving through into southern Illinois, Indiana, into Kentucky, and back through north central Tennessee. We're gonna have to see. Really, one of the big questions is where does that dry air kind of fill in for southern Tennessee, and whether southern Tennessee can actually get in to some of that precipitation. And any precipitation you would see in southern Tennessee, western Tennessee, northern Arkansas would be in the form of snow because it will be cold enough by that point. And now we're starting to see that precipitation move into the mid mid-Atlantic. So this would be by right around 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central Time. Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee, Southern West Virginia, Southwestern Virginia, and Western North Carolina, mainly in the higher elevations, are dealing with some snowfall, and you can definitely tell it's mainly rain for North Carolina and Virginia by this point, just because it's not going to be cold enough at that point. We still need that cold air to come in on the western half of the system, and that is going to happen as we go overnight tonight. So 1 a.m. Eastern Time, it's snowing in much of northern North Carolina, western Virginia, and southern West Virginia, maybe lingering into Kentucky, Tennessee, and western North Carolina. And then you're going to see a big switch over potentially in the early morning hours as you get into kind of the coldest time of the day, usually in the early morning hours between about 4 and 7 a.m., right before the sun is about to rise up. That's when you're usually the coldest, and that's when that precipitation is going to move over eastern North Carolina and southern Virginia, and you're kind of timing it out perfectly, where if you like snow, you might be able to get some of it out of this system over especially northeastern North Carolina, southern Virginia, looking at most of that snowfall. And then this would be by 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Here's by 7 a.m. And it's wrapping up, but you can still see the eastern halves of Virginia and North Carolina looking at a little bit more of that snow as you're getting a much colder air mass to start to kick in. And by the way, if you live along the Great Lakes right here, definitely watch out for a little bit of lake effect. And it's going to be little streamer bands that are going to move through some of those areas. And they could sit over the same area for a couple hours, give maybe 2 or 3 additional inches. So if you live near the Great Lakes, don't be surprised if you see a little bit of lake effect go through the early morning hours on Thursday. So this would be by 7 a.m. and then this would be by 10 a.m. and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, very cold for these areas as you get maybe some snow cover on the ground and also just that colder air mass setting in. So here's what the European model shows for snowfall, and we're looking at most of that snow, kind of a lighter area for Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky, 1 to 2 inches, but you get into southern Virginia and northern North Carolina, again, especially that northeastern part of North Carolina, that's where you're looking at maybe upwards of 3 inches of snowfall. Here's the GFS model, and we're looking at the GFS is a little bit overdone, I think, on this, and you could, of course, see a couple pockets of maybe 4 or 5 inches, but 6 or 7 inches, that might be stretching it a little bit, but you can see the general placement of it, which is kind of what I'm looking at the most, is the same. You're looking at heavier snow through southern Virginia, northern North Carolina, some lighter snow out to the west, but still it's an additional 1 or 2 inches of snowfall. And then here's what the NAM model is showing, and you're looking at more of that snow moving through northern North Carolina and the mid-Atlantic in general, and kind of in a line there that moves up through into Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and then as you get to the other side of the Appalachians, that's where the snow really starts to get heavier, and you're maybe looking at, again, 3 or 4 inches, maybe a couple isolated spots of 5 or so inches of snowfall. So here's my snowfall forecast, and then we're going to look at your temperatures because they could also be quite substantial in terms of how cold they will be. This is from today until Thursday, so the storm is already ongoing, so this is going to be additional snowfall, under an inch of additional snowfall for these areas in the Tennessee Valley through just about west to about Missouri and northern Arkansas, and then you go east of the Appalachians for many of those areas in North Carolina, southern Virginia, and into West Virginia there. That's where I'm looking at under an inch of snowfall. 1 to 3 inches of snowfall in this darker blue, kind of the medium blue shade there, and that extends through much of eastern Missouri, which is currently dealing with more snow, for southern Illinois, southern Indiana, in through Kentucky, depending on your elevation, some parts of Tennessee as well, western North Carolina, northern North Carolina, southern Virginia, and southern West Virginia. And also, I don't want to kind of forget these areas in the Smoky Mountains. A couple of those higher elevations could even deal with maybe 1 or 2 inches of snowfall, although it's just the mountaintops. I really don't think it'll be a widespread 1 to 2 inches of snowfall, mainly just a coating to an inch here and there. And then here's that 3 to 6 inch area, and that's for western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, southwestern Virginia, and southern West Virginia. And then another pocket for northeastern North Carolina, and that little area could budge around by about 25 or so miles. You could kind of move it around a little bit, but generally in northeastern North Carolina, there have been a lot of models, most of the models actually, that are indicating indicating that heaviest band of snowfall moving through that area. And as you go through the overnight hours, you could definitely see some rapid cooling, and that could allow more of that rain to switch over to fairly heavy snowfall. So that might lead to some additional accumulations throughout those regions. And also, if you live through the southern Appalachians, through Tennessee and North Carolina, especially over northwestern North Carolina, northeasternmost Tennessee, those areas could have a couple, again, mountaintops that are dealing with 6+ inches, mainly over 4,000 feet would be the general location there. And then here are these temperatures. We're going to look at the actual temperatures and then the wind chill temperatures, because those will definitely be quite chilly for this time of year. Here would be by tomorrow morning. Here's your low temperatures. And as you get into kind of this color right here, that's where you're below zero. So we are dealing with a decent area of below zero through northern Illinois, much of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and even a little bit of North Dakota there. We're going to see that by Friday, that colder air mass shifts further east as we get onto the backside of this system that's rolling out, and we start to get much colder temperatures. Look at that, teens and 20s getting all the way down into the mid-Atlantic and the Tennessee Valley. Through the Ohio Valley, it's back into the single digits. Even a couple of below zero readings through the western Great Lakes, and then potentially some more below zero readings, maybe even closer to -10 or -15 degrees in some areas of upstate New York and southern Vermont there, and even into northern New Hampshire there, where you could be dealing with very, very cold temperatures. And on Friday, it will actually be quite gusty out on the backside of the system. As that's heading out, it will ramp up the winds out of the north, and that'll create wind chills that are much colder, and we're going to look at those in just a second. Here's those Saturday low temperatures, and you can see single digits for much of the Northeast, and then you get into the interior Northeast, and you're looking at maybe even closer to -15, -17, 18, 19 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. And then here would be by Sunday, the 31st, the last day of January, more of the same there. That those below zero temperatures actually move a little bit southwest, and then here would be by Monday, we're still looking at below zero temperatures. They are breaking up a little bit, but you can still definitely tell that it's going to be chilly. It's going to be below average for this time of year, and definitely something that you're going to want to pay attention to, because this might be the coldest air of the season for a lot of areas so far. Now, here are your wind chill temperatures, and I'm going to pick the morning hours of each of these days that we just looked at. So this would be by Thursday morning. We're looking at some wind chills, maybe even closer to -20, -30 in northern Minnesota, with those winds that could be quite gusty. You could be dealing with some very, very cold wind chills for this time of year, but that's pretty usual for the winter. You usually see at least one or two of these very cold days, and that's going to move into the Northeast as we get to Friday, and that's where you're looking at some scattered below zero wind chills for the Midwest and the Great Lakes, but it's mainly over the Northeast there where you see a solid area from northern Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey northeastward through upstate New York and New England, where you're looking at below zero wind chills, and even in the Adirondacks, some of the Green and White Mountains, closer to -30 degrees below zero, and -30 degrees, where those are your wind chills. Of course, your temperatures are going to be higher, but what it actually feels like outside is going to be much, much colder. And then here's by Saturday, pretty much more of the same, and those temperatures are starting to warm a little bit, but you can still tell that it is very cold, and an extra 1 or 2 degrees really isn't going to make too much of a difference. And then here's by Sunday, the colder air is starting to lift out, but it's still below zero wind chills, double-digit below zero for a lot of these areas throughout the Northeast. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.